Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of Know-How is brought to you by iFixit. You can fix it, and iFixit makes it easy with step-by-step repair guides, high-quality replacement parts, and all the tools you'll need. For $10 off your purchase of $50 or more, go to ifixit.com/twit and enter the code KNOWHOW at checkout. And by Hulu Plus. Hulu Plus lets you binge on thousands of hit shows anytime, anywhere on your TV, PC, smartphone, or tablet. Visit huluplus.com/knowhow to start your free 2-week trial. That's huluplus.com/knowhow. Today, you'll know how to take these analog videotapes, digitize them, and then edit them using Premiere. Tapes. They're tapes. I'll leave one right here. Right there. Bow, bow, ticka, ticka, bow, bow, bow. Welcome to Know-How. This is Twit's how-to show. We show you something, a fun little project. I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
I'm Father Robert Balaser.
And, today's projects they kind of go hand in hand because it was the holiday season, And in the old days, we used to take our old camcorders, and this is an actual camcorder circa 1993, I want to say. It's a handy cam. And we used to record them onto these video video 8 tapes. These are analog. If you guys don't remember analog, there's little stuff in there.
Wait, Ayaz, is that like an SD card but bigger?
It's kind of like tape backups. Remember tape backups? Anyway, so I wanted to show you guys. This is actually a project that folks were emailing us about lots of times. How do I digitize my analog stuff? And it's actually relatively easy. The hard part is finding all the equipment that works. So let's actually try to do it live. And when it fails, I will have a backup to show you how that works.
Because it will fail. Absolutely will fail.
Okay, so the first thing you got to do is you got to find yourself a piece of hardware that can play back your old tapes. This camcorder, I told you, is from the mid-90s. This thing's built like a tank. I don't know if you can see this. See that shiny stuff? It's gunky. Why? I have no idea, other than it's been in my garage for about 5 years. So it's been sitting in the garage, getting cold and expanding, and I'm doing all kinds of things. And so what I need to do is connect these analog outputs to my computer. And what I found was a video capture. This is video capture from Elgato. It's about 80 bucks. And inside, it's a much nicer package than I have because I've actually taken it apart. You get on one side, USB, other side, analog cables, S-video, and composite.
So it's just going to go in analog on one side. The converter's actually inside that little box, and then you get it through the USB cable into your computer in digital format.
Exactly. And the software is available for Mac or Windows. They give you a little card to say, go to elgato.com/downloads. Although for Mac, they even have an optical disc. Assuming your Mac.
Optical disc?
I know.
Wow.
Of the two, why would the Mac have it?
That's just a little bit better than those tapes.
Yeah, so I've got a whole bunch of tapes. And this project, again, I mentioned you guys wanted me to do this. So did my brother. He wanted me to take these videotapes from my older brother's high school graduation. And this one is not even labeled. I don't know what it is. I guess we'll find out.
Wild card.
Inside there is actually one of our family vacations. So I'm going to hook this up to my PC. So we're just going to take our 3 cables. Very simple. Very easy. Do you know your colors, Robert?
I do. You've got red and white, which were your left and your right audio, or actually reverse that, and then your yellow, which was your composite video.
All right, so we've got here, this is that old style. This is so weird. Like we used to do this. This is the analog hole.
This was state of the art.
This is a CCD camera.
Really
we talked
is,
about
yeah.
cameras being really fancy. This is CCD. What you do is for a Windows machine, you download a driver to actually understand the video capture card. When it comes to the Mac, you just download software. I'm going to try to run it live, and we've got my laptop. We'll show that. Let's see, video capture. Let me open that up. That's opening up. Let me turn this on to VTR. First thing you get is a screen that says, hey, what are you going to name this movie? This one, the first thing it says, my great movie, which it is not a great movie, so I will say,
no,
not great. Now, this thing is going to capture your video in H.264 and AAC audio. And that means it's going to be pretty small files for 60 minutes. It's only 728 megabytes. And you can actually see how long this would be. If you have a 3-hour tape, 2.1 gigabytes, let's just say 60 minutes and hit continue. All right, so now I have to hit play on the VTR. I wonder if you can hear this.
Oh, I hear it spooling up.
You can hear it spooling up. So it's going to try to play back. And right now, it's looking for the video. Now, on my screen right now, you're seeing, oh, there it goes. It's actually working because this is analog video. So whatever the output is what you're going to see. So if your videotape is damaged, you're going to have to fix that in post magically.
Tracking.
Yeah.
Tracking.
Good luck with that.
Oh,
so
my gosh.
if there are any problems,
Whoa, memories.
Oh, it's a Carousel of Progress. It's one of our Disney World videos where you're not allowed to record these. So I don't remember.
So you were a bootlegger way back then.
Oh, this is an experience. So you hit continue, and then it's looking for audio. Now you can see that in these channels, we have right and left audio. That's good. This is working so far. So far, really simple. Hit connect, and you can hit start recording. Right then and there, you're pretty much done. Now, this worked way, way, way more seamlessly than it did yesterday when I was doing this. Because I'm going to try to stop this recording. And I'm going to hit stop on this VCR or VTR. And I'm going to try to fast forward. I wish you could hear this. Can you hear that? I don't know, it's like making this wheezing noise.
Now, you know, it's worth it to mention that this is not even DV tech. So if you have one of those DV decks, you can actually start and stop the player from your computer. This only takes whatever signal is coming in. So it doesn't matter if the tape has failed. It will just keep recording black, or it will record static. So you kind of have to watch it.
Yeah, there are a few enhancements you can make when you're actually importing the video. Nothing spectacular. You can change the color, the hue. You just go into preferences right here. Let's see, file. I'm gonna have to do that. Actually, we'll have to do that before I start everything. We're not gonna go back to that right now. But here's the deal. If I want to get this tape out, this old piece of junk, I'm gonna hit eject. Let's see if it actually works. You see, now it's stalling. This thing's supposed to pop up and everything. There's a crazy trick. I basically found this out through trial and error. I had to keep turning the power off, continuing to do that, and when I took it out, the tape was all over the place.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So what does that mean? We use our old friend, the pencil.
That technology right there.
Now, you guys might be too young to understand, what do you use a pencil for with tape? The eraser head fits nicely into here, so you can rewind it and put it back on the spool to make it nice and taut. You're gonna be doing this again and again and again, unless you have a nicer piece of hardware than I do, because again, mid-90s Handycam, really great in the mid-90s. In 2013, it doesn't age so well, and as we mentioned before, it's all real time. So hit play, go take a walk, but it's gonna work. So the Elgato solution is about 80 bucks. Like I mentioned before, it runs on Mac, runs on Windows. And when you're done with all this import, you're like, okay, what am I gonna do with it? We're gonna edit it down because nobody wants to watch really horrible video. We've always talked about that. Lots of shaky cam. I've noticed this because back then we had a viewfinder that was about this big. I'm not even kidding, it's about the size of a postage stamp. You're carrying around everything like this, and you don't watch it back live when it's happening. So you have no idea how bad these things are. And I've watched back a lot of this video. Some of it is unwatchable, and so we're gonna have to edit it down.
Well, you can't judge, video from 20 years ago. I mean, of course, you've advanced in both your technology and your cinematographic skill. But Ayaz, let me ask you, file size. I know you say that this is really, really compressed, but we deal with HD files now, even in H.264, and you're typically looking at something along the lines of like a gigabyte for every 10 minutes of footage or so. And that's if you've got a really good compression codec. What does this do per minute?
This per minute, I don't know, per hour, 700 megabytes.
Oh, that's nothing.
About. So it's it's pretty light on that. Just make sure you have a fast enough processor to handle this stuff and a fast enough hard drive. If you're running a 5400 RPM hard drive, I don't recommend that because I tried it out with another machine. Kind of skippy and kind of a problem. Make sure you have a fast enough hard drive to do this and a fast enough processor so it can handle the compressing.
And then something else is the format, because we're used to the 16:9 now. We have widescreen. If I remember correctly, the old tech didn't do 16:9. It did 4:3.
You actually have the option when you're going to pick your capture if you can do 16:9 or 4:3. I'm always of the mind to always stick to the original format, and back then it was 4:3. Stick to 4:3. Yes, you'll have things on the side unless you do editing later. We're going to get to the editing real quick because we're going to make something magical happen with this, right?
Totally magic right here on the set.
Okay, so we're going to do that, but first, let's stop and thank our friends at iFixit, because iFixit is sponsoring Know How. Now, you've probably heard of iFixit. Anytime a device comes out, they tear it apart to find out how repairable it is. You've seen this with the iPhone 5C, you've seen this with the iPad Air, you've seen it with the Xbox One. Pretty much anytime you see any of these devices bust it open and see the beautiful architecture inside, it's iFixit. So you've heard of them. They've also got lots of free online repair manuals. I've used them a lot when it came to fixing my S3. This is my S3 screen. If you could see this, It's shattered, it's broken. I use their toolkit, and that's actually what I want to talk about is their toolkit. This here is the iFixit Pro Tech Toolkit. Now, it's got pretty much everything you need to get into modern electronics. So one of the things that you always need, and this is silly these days, you need a spudger, right? Something to pry open something without breaking plastic. You don't want to destroy your objects. But I really want to talk about this driver kit. This has 54 bits. Now, we use this a lot when we did our NES MAME. So if we got the footage of this, we basically made the MAME out of anything we could find in the basement. So to open it up, you can see Brian there. He's actually opening up the USB hub that we used. He opened it with a spudger. We were finding random screws in the basement. Some of them were pentalobe, some of them were Phillips, some of them were flathead, but they were all usable thanks to the iFixit kit because it works with everything. Like a hex, pentalobe, square, Torx, even tri-wing or triangle. So if you ever get like a McDonald's toy and it breaks, a little triangle, that's in this kit. It's also useful for your glasses, your doorknobs, things around the house. Lots of things available when it comes to this kit. It's $64.95, and it comes with a 1-year warranty. It even has, in the driver kit, this cool flexible extension. So if you're trying to get into a hard-to-reach area, you can actually attach the extension, and it'll reach in. It's really cool. Let me actually show that thing off. Let's get this out of there. So we got our driver, and we got our extender, which is stuck.
Getting those hard-to-reach places.
Absolutely. So we just attach this to here. And what happens is you have this flexible piece. So when I turn up here, it turns the bottom right down here. So it actually, I'm trying to get into somewhere that's really hard to get. It's a really cool thing, and also can double as a torque. So if you can't get something open, you can, I'm not kidding, you can torque it with this.
Off.
Well,
Hopefully not.
Be careful not to strip
yeah.
what you're doing because those things are kind of nuts. Also, the kit's got like electrostatic wrist straps. I know we're supposed to be wearing this when we fix stuff, but it's got all of the stuff you need in one kit. It's the Pro Tech Toolkit, and that driver kit has become invaluable to so many of our know-how projects. It's just freaking fantastic. And like I said before, $64.95, backed by a 1-year warranty. And you know, the holidays are just around the corner. The Pro Tech Toolkit is the perfect gift for any geek, hobbyist, or do-it-yourselfer. So if you got somebody in your life that needs a kit like this, they've got you covered. With iFixit, you can fix it yourself. Visit ifixit.com/twit for free step-by-step guides. ifixit.com also sells every part and tool you'll need. Plus, if you enter the code KNOWHOW at checkout, you'll save $10 off any purchase of $50 or more. That's ifixit.com/twit, and we thank iFixit for their support of Know-How. So, Robert, I've imported all of this video, and I want to edit it, but I shouldn't just jump into that, right?
No, please don't. I mean, that's one of the biggest mistakes that beginning content creators make, and that is they just dump all their files on the computer and then they say, well, let's edit it together, and I'll worry about organizing it later on. If you do that, I guarantee you won't organize it down the road. So we put together a quick tip to show you why you should put some thought into organizing and archiving your files. I'm Father Robert Palliser, the digital Jesuit, here with a quick tip. This time I'm reaching out to you young, aspiring, future video content creation masters. Now, I know at the beginning, the inclination is to just go out and create. You want to grab your camera, you want to shoot things, you want to dump it onto your computer, edit it, and then publish it as quickly as possible so that people can see it, be it on YouTube, Vimeo, wherever it is. Now, you're probably not giving too much thought to organizing and archiving your files, but let me explain why you should. At the beginning, having files everywhere, video files here, music files there, title files and screen grabs in different parts of your drive is probably not too much of a problem. In fact, it's probably easier for you to do it that way because you sit down fresh, ready to edit. The problem is if you plan on being in this game for more than just a day or a week or a month, but for years and years and years, those files will slowly pile up. It may be easy to find the assets you need when you've only got 10 or 100 or even 1,000 files, but what happens when you have tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands? It might as well not be there. If you can't find the assets you need in a timely fashion, then what good are they? And anyone who's been doing this game for a while knows that one of our greatest assets is stuff that we've already created, files that we've already shot, videos that we've already acquired, music that we've already organized. So it's always good to have an organization. Let me show you a quick way to organize my files that I found over the years that maybe might inspire a way for you to organize yours. It all starts with a descriptive folder. You're going to want to put all your assets into one place. Now, you might be asking me, well, Padre, why do I want it all in one place? What if I share files? Aren't I going to be duplicating? Won't I be using up more memory, more hard drive space? Well, yes. I mean, if, for example, you've got an intro file that you're going to be using in every single video, you're going to have multiple copies. That may waste space, but hard drive space is cheap. What's not cheap is having project files go missing. You want everything to be a self-contained unit, and that's why you have it all in a single folder. For me, I always have something that starts at the beginning by describing the series. For example, I have here Gadget, which was my old show. I also have new folders for Twit and for Before You Buy, so I understand what that project is from the onset. Is it a Gadget file? Is it a Before You Buy file? Is it a know-how file? From the start of a series to the end, you should always be using the same naming convention, which also means that you should put some thought into the beginning of the series. What kind of files are you going to be needing? If it's a vlog, you're really only going to need A-roll and maybe some B-roll, so that live shot and maybe something to cover over the transitions. If you're going to be doing reviews, you're going to need a lot of B-roll and you're probably going to need some screenshots, maybe even some voiceover track. If you're going to be doing interviews, you're definitely going to need an A-roll and a B-roll, both live, maybe even a third camera for a cutaway shot. These are the things that if you spend some time at the beginning of your project rather than at the end, you can save hours, even days of organizing later on. Now, speaking of organizing, one of the things that we have to do is to archive our videos. It's nice to have everything available on your desktop, but at some point you're going to run out of space and you're going to need to move it off to a NAS, maybe off to some external hard drives, maybe even to off-site backup. Now, one quick tip when you're using Adobe Premiere is that there are files inside of these folders that will be created by Adobe Premiere that don't need to be there. Specifically, I'm talking about the temporary files that exist inside these folders. Adobe creates 3 sets of folders when it starts rendering your project. The first is called Adobe Premiere Pro Autosave. The second is Adobe Premiere Pro Preview files. And the third is encoded files. You don't need to archive those files because Adobe Premiere will automatically recreate them if you ever need to work on the project again. The nice thing about this is you can significantly decrease the amount of data you have to archive because those files can run from the hundreds of megabytes to the several gigabytes depending on the size of your project. You can go ahead and delete those without any fear of missing out on something in the future. I know that this sounds really basic, and it probably sounds silly that I'm trying to explain this to you, but believe me, if more video content creators put time and effort into organizing and archiving their files, we'd probably see a whole lot more content and a whole lot less aggravation. I'm Father Robert Balasier, the Digital Jesuit, and that is your quick tip.
You know, I was taking classes on editing. One of the things was organization is key because if you don't have it, you will go mad and you're like, where's that clip? Where's the clip? And sometimes the editor itself, the nonlinear editor, is like, well, I don't know where the file is. You moved it, and that causes issues. Big difference there. Organization is really key. But while that was running, I decided to get the tape out, and I'm kidding you not. This is actually how it came out. I had to power on and off the thing, so we're going to use the pencil again to try to hope that my brother does not get mad at me that I'm ruining our 1996 Disney vacation, Disney World. So yeah, hear that noise? Yep. That's what tapes sound like.
This is the technology, folks.
Sounds like a dolphin. And there's some ridge. Can you see the ridges there?
Yeah,
that
ridge,
means that tape is now permanently damaged there. There's a little ridging, but you get what you got,
It
right?
adds a vintage feel to the transfer, I believe.
Yeah, it's like Instagram before Instagram. Anyway, now that we got our footage, what should we do with it?
All right, so of course you've organized everything. And if Brian will show my laptop, you'll see this quick organization that we did of some of the files that IAS was able to get. We've got our B-roll, we've got our IAS roll, we've got our IAS and HD roll. Basically all the different folders that we needed to be able to have so that we have a nice distinction between the different assets that we've got. Now, one of the things that you're going to do, this is of course Adobe Premiere. I'm using Adobe Premiere CS5. I know there's going to be a few of you who are using CS 5.5 or 6, but the reason why I chose 5 is because it's a nice midway point. It's the first version to really well support AVC HD files, which is what a lot of recorders, cameras use today. And it's also old enough for those people who don't like the new cloud service that it gives you a nice look and feel for the classic CS interface. What you see in front of you is the workspace. This is what you're going to see when you first turn on Adobe Premiere. I've got a couple of files in here, but the first thing you want to be able to do is import your assets. Now, I got to ask you this. Do you know the resolution of your files?
I think it's 640 by 360.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
It's not 360, it's probably 480.
480, yeah, 640,
I'm thinking 360 because that'd be widescreen. 640 by 480 is the 4:3 aspect ratio, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then they've got like 720 by 480 for DV, and you go up to 1280 by 720, 1920 by 1080. The reason why I ask is because it's actually important to know what resolution you're natively running in. Because, again, if you go to Adobe Premiere, when you open up a new project, you're going to get this window. This window right now is asking you, look, what's the native resolution of the files with which you will be using the most? Now, you can choose a resolution that your files are not in, but it's not going to work as easily. It's always good to know what kind of format you're going to have. So, for example, I'm going to use AVC HD 1080i 30, 60 frames a second, so it's interlaced. So I'm going to call this know-how. I'll call it know-how 1. I now have a new sequence on my timeline called know-how.
Okay, and the thing on the bottom there is called your timeline.
Right.
And each thing you're creating, each project you're creating is your sequence, or actually the project is the larger name for it, but each subpart of your project is called a sequence. So that's what's going on down there in the timeline. If you've ever used Final Cut or if you've seen iMovie, the layout is very similar. So if you're like Premiere, I'm not going to use Premiere. All of the techniques Robert's going to tell you about, all of this stuff, totally translates to so many different other nonlinear editors, even Sony Vegas.
Absolutely.
Some of the dirt cheap ones out there. So pay attention to this because that thing on the bottom, our timeline, is going to be very, very important.
Right. It's more about the techniques than it is about the technology. The technology is pretty much universal across all high-end nonlinear editors. Now, what I need to do now is I need to get in some of the files. If I go back to my folder here, there's a couple of different ways. I can import, but I prefer to drag and drop. So I'm going to click and hold B-roll, drag it into this, which is my asset window. This whole thing is my asset window, which means the things that I can work in when I'm working in Premiere, and I drop it in. Now, Adobe is going to go ahead and import them, and now I have access to all those files. What I can do now is take I have 3 files in that folder. I'm going to take it, I'm going to drop it into my preview monitor. There are 2 different monitors here. This is preview, this is workspace. So this monitor will show you what's going on inside those individual clips, whereas this monitor will show you what's going on down in the timeline. As you can see, the timeline has no clips, so it's blank. Now we want to add clips. You were talking about this, right? Clip, drop into timeline. Clip, drop into timeline.
So we're going to have the asset you put in will have usually more content than you need it's going to go in your timeline. So in that preview window, you're going to select an in point and an out point. That's what you're going to drag over to the timeline. I got a question for you though. When you drag B-roll over that file, that folder, if you add something later to that B-roll folder in Windows, will it automatically update, or do you have to tell Premiere, hey, I added another file?
Yeah, no, you have to tell Premiere. So this happens all the time. So let's say, for example, you are doing your production and you realize, oh, I need a little bit of extra B-roll. There's a couple of ways to do it. What I typically do is I'll drop it into the B-roll folder and then I will manually add it back into Premiere. But if you can't remember that, what you do is you end up making like B-roll 2, B-roll 3, B-roll 4 every single time, because it's not going to automatically update with all the files in that folder.
That's something that's been driving me nuts about Final Cut for a long time. And I'm like, why can't it be smart?
Yeah, it should be.
That's why organization is incredibly important.
Absolutely key, right? Because you don't want to have to hunt down that one file in the 300 file project. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of a preview. Let me show you how it works. As you said, you could digitize hours and hours and hours of footage, but of course, maybe I only want 15 seconds. So I will find the point at which I want to start my clip. So I want to start right about there. And I'm going to go ahead and add myself an in point. And notice how this bar has now lit up. It's saying, right now, I'm going from this point all the way to the end of the clip. That's what I've selected. But I don't want the whole clip. I want just a couple of seconds. So I'm going to move a little bit further and select an out clip.
So you can drag the actual cursor over, or the little bar, the scrubber that is, and actually create an out point. You can also use keyboard shortcuts. I believe this is true with Premiere.
Absolutely.
I and O, input, output, point. You can find those in the I guess, all the keyboard shortcuts. But you're showing this how to do it very visually.
Right.
That's how we do
Yeah,
it.
and when you start, you're going to be using the mouse, but pretty soon you're going to learn all the keyboard shortcuts, so you'll be just going click, 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 and you're in. Now, here's a cool thing. I can drag the whole thing. So if I click this, I'm now dragging the whole clip. But let's say I don't want the whole clip, see, because if I do this, it's giving me both, and let me zoom in here so you can actually see what I just did. It's giving me both the audio and the video, if you can see that. Let's say I only want the video. I can just drag this, which is my video clip only, and it only drags the top half, or I could click this, and it only drags the bottom half. It's a really good way to be able to add something on top of, let's say you put a music track and you don't want the natural music from the clip because that would kind of destroy the ambiance.
Yeah, so that timeline is split horizontally. Above that the darkest line, the black line, is the video, below it is the audio. And that's where you're showing that if you dragged from the preview window, it would go together. But if you decide, you don't have to unlink them, you can just drag the audio only if you want to.
Just drag the audio.
The video only.
Right.
Okay.
And now once the clip is on the timeline here, and by the way, this is called the playhead because it shows you what this is playing. I can actually adjust the length continuously. If I move my cursor, if you zoom in here, Brian, if I move my cursor right to the end of the clip, it's going to change to bracket. And once I have that, that is now going to change how long that clip runs. So I can adjust the length of my clip. I don't have to go back up to the preview window to do it. I can actually do it on the timeline. And that's useful when you need to play with timing because maybe you're setting it to a musical beat.
Yeah, and that's about adjusting the length of the clip. That's not changing the speed of the clip.
Nope.
This is something particular. So if there's video after it, if you keep trying to drag and drag and drag and you're stopped, it means your clip is done. There's no more clip there for you to actually pull out.
Right. Now, what we want to do is we want to have a couple of clips here. So I'm going to go into the IAS folder because, well, that's what we just
Who
took.
doesn't have an IAS folder?
Who doesn't?
That's
exactly, right? That's what everyone's asking. So I'm going to drop this in here, and now this is all the video that IAS digitized. Let me go ahead and click an in point and an out point really quickly. I'm going to drop it on the timeline, and then I'm going to go ahead and take another one. Actually, let me shorten that. That's way too much.
Now, what did you
IAS.
do right there? You just ended up. You were pulling back from the timeline.
Oh,
so
right,
you could
right.
Fit more.
So exactly. Thank you.
You did it
This
so
thing
quickly
right
that-
up top, this bar, this is sort of like your zoom bar. It tells you how much time your timeline is representing. So it can represent all the way from just a few seconds, and so therefore your clip looks really big, to multiple hours, so all your clips look really, really small. It's a good way to zoom in and out whenever you're working on multiple projects. So let me get another clip here really quickly. Oh, I love this. IAS with Mickey Mouse, I think.
I think it's
Minnie Mouse. Minnie Mouse, right. So let's go ahead and clip that. Is my in point and my out point. I'm going to bring it down here. Now I've got these two clips on my timeline, but look at my program monitor, Ayaz. What do you see?
I see a lot of black space around the video.
Exactly, because remember my resolution that I set was for 1080i, which is 1920 by 1080. Your videos are
640 by 480,
yeah,
so
exactly.
they're tiny and they're
Teeny,
centering
teeny
it.
tiny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on the clip, and there's a thing here that says scale to frame size, and it will actually make a best guess to get it to fit. But even here, you see, there's going to be black bars,
Pillar
right?
bars, because we
Yeah.
shot in 4:3, and this is a 16:9 project file.
Right. So now I've got two video clips that, that's a pretty quick transition. I don't like that. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply what's called a transition. In this bar is where we keep all our transitions. Audio transitions, video transitions, and effects. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my video transitions. And let me tell you right now, if you're video editing, please, for God's sake, please only use two transitions, cross dissolve and fade to white. If you use anything else, I will have snubs go to your house and punch you in the mouse, okay? Because seriously, it looks horrible. I know you want to play with the dissolve and the superstar. No, don't do it. Unless you're going for irony, only use those two. I'm going to grab cross dissolve, and again, really, it's like word processing. Take the transition, drag it to the space between the two, and drop it. And now if you can see, let me zoom in here, there's now a transition. Oh, go ahead and zoom out a little bit. There's a transition between those two clips. So
Yeah, nice crossfade there.
a crossfade
Less jarring.
over from one to the other.
We touched upon that point when we were talking about iPad editing. It's a great analogy to say like word processor. The first time somebody gets one, they have like 80 fonts in their first picture they've ever printed out. Like I wrote this note about a garage sale and it's got 30 fonts. And later on you realize how bad that looks. Padre's totally right.
Yep.
I might do more than two transitions, but it depends on your project and what you're doing.
Right.
But use some restraint.
Restraint. When you get better, like I asked, go ahead and drop more transitions.
Drop 'em
but
in
don't
there.
go crazy, please, because star wipes are never cool.
Unless you're trying to be funny.
Unless you're trying to be funny.
Or Homer Simpson.
Now, I want to give you one last thing, because remember, 90% of video editing is just what I showed you. Getting a clip, cutting a clip, dropping it on the timeline, adding a transition. But there is one thing you do want to know, and that is adding effects, specifically color correction. Most of the time when we tape, our color's off, our contrast is off, our brightness is off. Adobe Premiere has a really good way to fix that over in this corner called Video Effects. If I drop into the folder called Color Correction, I have a couple of different tools that I could use. The first one is going to be called Fast Color Corrector. I love this filter. I'm going to just drag it. I'm going to drop it on top of this. Now, if Brian will go back to the larger video, I have in my effects control the ability to set my white balance.
So wait a second, when you put an effect on top of a clip, in the preview window itself, a new tab shows up called Effects Control, right? Otherwise, is Effect Control even there?
Yeah, only if I tab over. See, because there's multiple tabs in this window. So I'm going to tab over to Effects Control. Now I can control the effects for that particular clip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click the tool here. This lets me set my white balance, because most of the time we shoot off of white. I can actually go over to the main picture here. I'm going to say, okay, the idea would be to have a color card, but because I don't have a color card, I'm going to say this person's shirt right here, that's white. Okay, and then this color wheel can adjust to filter out any of the weirdness that's going on in the color warmth.
Yeah, so if you want to mess with this and have a matrix style looking video, which is actually pushing a lot of green, you'd pull your white balance slightly over to the green, you'll see that tint happen. And I don't know why when in 1996 we didn't have gray cards and before our videos. We should have done it. As kids, I don't know what we were thinking. We were going to Disney World, we're like, should have held up the card. We were so dumb and young then.
I will say this, I have a built-in card. I white balance off of this. This is not the standard color for a clerical color. I actually custom made this. This is a white card. The other side's
got a test pattern.
Exactly. Now, let me show you really quickly what we did. I did this in about 20 minutes before we started the show. This is a very small compilation. It's a minute long, using all the techniques that we just showed off in the episode, with a few extra things like motion and scaling and size, et cetera, but it's just cutting, pasting, transition with a music track underneath, and it looks something like this.
Aww. That almost makes it seem like it was a happy trip. I remember that trip. No, that's what you can do with just a bit of editing. And you had a bunch of clips, made it look real nice. And now people want to watch that video.
You know what else people want to watch?
Probably their favorite TV shows.
Their favorite TV shows, yeah.
And that's why we should stop and take a break and thank our friends at Hulu Plus. You know, you guys have probably tried out Hulu.com. Hulu Plus is so much more. And with Hulu Plus, you can watch your favorite shows anytime, anywhere. You can watch thousands of hit TV shows right in your living room or on the go. Right now, Padre's showing you on the iPad app right there. And see, my favorite thing about Hulu Plus is you don't need to schedule recordings. Like, one of my favorite shows right now is Almost Human. I don't know what day it's on, I don't know what time it's on, but Hulu Plus is they always have it for me. So I can watch it in HD on Hulu Plus, so I can start it on my iPad. And when I get home, I can continue watching it on my Apple TV or other box, Roku, Xbox, pretty much anything that has an internet connection has access to Hulu Plus, and it actually picks up right where you left off. Big fan of that. They've actually got the full runs of shows like Lost, Doctor Who, Community, and Star Trek. They also have some exclusive content and originals like The Wrong Man's and Behind the Mask. I've watched every episode of Behind the Mask. It's actually about the life of people who are inside of the mascot uniforms. So you've got some sports guys from their high school, semi-pro, and professional, including Bango, who is the mascot for the Milwaukee Bucks. It really is quite a great little series. You also get access to a collection of ad-free movies and kids content like Sesame Street. So if you want to watch Sesame Street, no ads during that show. For only $7.99 a month, you get to catch up on current shows, binge on old favorites, or catch a great movie. Stream as many TV shows and movies as you want, wherever you want. Like I mentioned, apps run on iPad, on Apple TVs, on Roku's, whatever you're thinking of, you got it. And right now, you can try Hulu Plus free for 2 weeks. When you go to huluplus.com/knowhow, that's a special offer for our audience. Make sure you use huluplus.com/knowhow so you get the extended free trial, and they know we sent you. We thank Hulu Plus for their support of Twit, and we hope you enjoy watching instantly with Hulu Plus.
I do.
You watch? I use Hulu Plus all the time.
I do. I mean,
I
that's
don't know
how,
when
that's how I
anything's
catch
on.
up with my shows.
I just don't know. That's how I caught up on the Goldbergs, which I really enjoy.
I mean, that's how I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I love doing it on Hulu Plus, so go figure.
So we've got a challenge for you guys, actually. So we've got we've seen some video editing skills.
Yeah. So because everyone has an IAS folder, as we talked about,
Yeah.
right? So
And
we
if you
showed
don't-
you. If you don't, you should. You really
You're about
should.
to have one.
You're about to have one. We showed you how we could take this footage and turn it into a little clip with just a little bit of work. So IAS has a challenge for you.
Yeah, so Brian and I and Alex Lindsay, for a special episode that's coming up soon, shot some stuff on a green screen. Now, do we have the footage? Here we go. So Alex Lindsay and I are running away from a green screen, and here we are running in terror. There's actually 2 different clips, and what we want to see is what you guys can put behind us. Now, we're going to have a link to the actual original file, so if you want to use a ProRes version of it, you can. If you want to go and download it from YouTube, that's your own thing. Good luck with that. But you can go out and try to put something crazy behind Alex Lindsay and I as we're running away in terror from something behind us. Get creative, do what you want, because on the 19th of December is when we're going to run the best ones. If you put them on our Google Plus page, gplus.to/TwitKH. I would love to see them there so everyone can see them. The best ones will be on the show. The worst ones might be on the show. I don't know. It could be amazing. I'm really curious what you guys come up with. Again, the green screen challenge for you guys coming up in like 2 weeks is when the final one is due. Again, go to gplus.to/TwitKH for our Google Plus community.
The challenge has been made. The gauntlet has been thrown. You guys tell us that you're pretty creative. Now we want to see it.
Yeah, if you're like, also, what about the link again? Where do I find that clip? Or what about any of the stuff you guys talked about? twit.tv/KH. We've got show notes for everything we've talked about in today's episode. I don't have an Amazon link for this handy cam. I apologize. It's a Video 8 handy cam, and unless you want this one, which you don't, I can't give you that. But everything else we talked about, it will be available at twit.tv/KH. Some of the best show notes you can find out on the internet or at twit.tv/KH.
And you know, if you still have questions, you can always reach us at our email address. Email. You may have heard about that. We still use it here at Twit. You can reach us at knowhow@twit.tv. Go ahead and write us a message about something you didn't understand, or maybe request something for a future episode, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to accommodate.
And there's also Twitter. So guys, we're always looking for the hashtag TwitKH. If you've got show ideas, if you've got wacky ideas, if you've got simple ideas, whatever they may be, hit us up with that hashtag. We're always on the lookout for what you guys have to say with the hashtag TwitKH. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for us. Don't you think, Robert?
Yeah, that's a pretty action-packed show. We learned how to digitize your memories, how to organize them, and then how to turn it into a fun little video. And by the way, that green screen challenge.
And also, yeah, how to use a pencil to use tapes. That's a rewind tapes. That's an old technique. Feeling old, Robert.
Way old. Old school.
Well, now you know how to feel old. Go out and digitize your tapes.
Be old.
You have to be old.